this is overwhelming. There's so many people here. Thanks so very much for that. I'm really privileged to follow all those brilliant speakers and to be here with all of you today to talk about being united against austerity. I'm here to tell you some of the ways that disabled people have been affected by austerity, including welfare reform cuts, cuts to benefits and cuts to services, but there's much, much more. These things are overwhelming, and surviving austerity has become a major focus for GDA and our 2,500 members. Although we're very proud of our numbers, we know that there's actually over 100,000 disabled people in Glasgow, nearly 25% of the population actually, over 1 million disabled people in Scotland, over 2 million people with long-term illnesses and conditions, so we're not talking about a small group here. It's a huge number of citizens whose lives have been or are about to be blighted by austerity and the impact of a right-wing agenda launched on the most vulnerable people in the society. We recognise that many groups and other people are also affected, and we're standing here today united with you against that. The people affected or working as allies and supporters are as much a part of this fight in helping us struggle to survive. And it's not just about the money, that's bad enough. It's not just that people can't make ends meet, are facing sanctions and cuts to their very basic standards of living, or using food banks, or worse, being too proud and starving. Actually, all of this is horrific, and it's eroding the basic protections and human rights that make this a civilised society. But it's also that disabled people in Glasgow are telling us they're facing stigma and hostility, aggression, lack of empathy and support, alienation and isolation, despair and hopelessness, a lack of basic humanity and the everyday attitudes that they have to face. We've got stories from members being turned away from job centres when they go looking for help to find a job. One member told us recently that she went and she waited for an hour and a half, and by the time she got to see the employment advisor, he said to her she couldn't be that disabled if she could wait an hour and a half. We've got stories of people asking for permission to attend our courses and our programmes of support. One member was recently told she couldn't come because if she came that meant she wasn't eligible for looking for work. In actual fact, the course we were running was an SBQ in employability, so she would have very much benefited from that. People are terrified and experiencing terrible delays in relation to the changeover of disability living allowance to PIP. Lengthy delays, a lack of a fair and transparent assessment process, lack of representation, and this is all going to get worse because third sector organisations like citizens advice organisations just don't have the resources to support people in the way that they need it. Also, I'd like to tell you about the experiences of the many disabled people who do work. And there's a scheme called Access to Work. Probably most people have never heard of it, but it supports disabled people by giving them transport or equipment or a support worker to help them in work. We know that there's a target to increase the uptake of disabled people in work, and despite this, disabled people are struggling to survive the humiliating assessments and reviews. I know a number of professional disabled people who've been degraded and humiliated by the assessment processes. I myself recently went through an assessment process and I was repeatedly asked if I'd recovered and still needed support. Having been reduced to tears, I simply asked the assessor, has there been a cure for MS in the last few years that I don't know about? And despite that, I was still forced to get a letter from my GP saying that no, in the last 20 years since I'd been diagnosed with MS, there hadn't been a cure. DWP have carried out a review of their internal processes and they've concluded that their own communications are not fit for purpose for working with vulnerable groups. So it's not just disabled people saying this. Disabled people are isolated and surrounded by attitudes that have been hardened and hiding behind this right-wing agenda, this view, this fallacy and delusion that we need to balance the books and reduce the budget. It's the worrying values behind this, it's the attitude and the regression of rights that we're really concerned about. Disabled people have asked me to tell all of you that they were never starting from an even playing field. This hasn't been an easy ride before austerity for disabled people. They've always faced multiple barriers, disadvantage and discrimination, a lack of access to information, to services, to education, to transport, to the world around us. Now hate crime has risen and GDA's had to become a third-party reporting centre. Media attacks about disabled people portraying negative images of either benefits, cheats and scroungers or superhumans. Disabled people are currently facing the worst ever crisis due to this perfect cut of storms to services, cuts to justice, cuts to human dignity and participation in their own lives, and all of this has a detrimental effect on health and well-being and being able to cope. Simply put, disabled people are second-class citizens suffering stress, anxiety, and at times people describe feeling suicidal as their personal resilience has been worn down. A couple of weeks ago was Participation Week in Scotland, and we were looking at people and communities and how they need and what they need to participate. Because the thing is, and I have told many people this, that the disabled people frequently don't get to participate in their own life, even in their own life. Austerity has crushed confidence, self-esteem and self-worth, and it's made sure that people have less choices, less control over their lives. Disabled people are voiceless and powerless and lacking in self-determination, lacking in participation, and absolutely in the ability to make a contribution, and a contribution that they can make and want to make. They ultimately lack the basic building blocks of citizenship. Surviving Austerity is something GDA and other disabled people's organisations have had to develop programmes and supports in response to. Sometimes it's about information and practical advice, sometimes it's about signposting to the agencies that can help with the welfare benefits, but also it's about providing access and support so that people can meet with each other, building connections, support and facilitate learning and peer support. All of this help builds resilience and the ability for people to have choices and control, to participate and to make their contribution. Austerity itself is not inevitable, other choices can be made. Inequality and lack of human rights are not inevitable. Working to raise awareness of all of this is a great starting point today, and that's what today is about for us, because most people fully don't understand what's going on, and we believe that they wouldn't condone it if they did. Austerity means disabled people being rated according to their economic worth, and we've said many times that we don't live in an economy, we live in a society, and what kind of society do we want to live in? We want to live in a society where we take care of those most in need, those most vulnerable experiencing poverty and disadvantage. I'll finish off by telling you what disabled people have told us, what they need to survive austerity. First, they do need a decent income, and that might or might not include benefits or a living wage. Practical support and information are also needed to deal with welfare reform, and disabled people also need understanding and compassion for other citizens when they're unmasked as being neither superhuman nor scrounger, the two extremes of the media. Ordinary disabled people need the same as everybody else. They need basic human dignity, to be treated with respect and have a sense of choice and control over their lives. For disabled people, this might mean some additional support, and we all recognise that, but we all need support. We all need a scaffolding to shore us up. So we're really proud and privileged to stand here today because we need you now more than ever. Thank you.